In a few minutes, we'll take communion together, but first of all, following the service here at the Independence Reformed Bible Church, we do allow for questions following the sermon. Who has the first question this morning? Yes.
It's just a detail, but can you sort of review the translation of the vexation of spirit and the grasping of the wind?
Yeah. The question was, could I review that difficulty, that translation between, it seems like there's no problem with vanity or emptiness, if you will, but then in some translations we say in vexation of spirit, in some, and in others say grasping for the wind. And one of the difficulties we run into in translating is what are called, I guess the plural is idia, right? Is that the plural? Idiom, idia, I think. It sounds like idiot, so it's kind of a hard word. But there are times when in translation we don't know if we have an idiom. For example, I'll give a quick example. Paul says in Romans says God forbid, right? In our King James, right? Well, the Greek language there, theos, ukos, or whatever, like not God, or God says not, or whatever. That doesn't exist there. It's a real strong, it's a real strong statement that no way, no chance, this can't happen type of thing, right? And so the King James translators felt that was an idiom. They said, well, our idea of that is God forbid, if you will. Okay, and they're trying to make it work. And so when it comes to this, like, is this grasping for the wind or is it vexation of spirit? Are we running into the same type of a thing here? The language is one thing, but the meaning is, as we understand, the best way we can do this is to say this is an idiom, if you will. Let's substitute their idiom for our idiom in order to get the point across. Everybody got that?
Instead of selecting words, you're selecting idioms.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's done in translation work. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're just trying to identify what is really being said here. Because sometimes words substitute for other words at times. It's hard work. Good question. Yes?
As you read through this list, it's not like you can look at this stuff and say it's terrible. Like, I guess where it boils down to is if this is where you're searching for your identity or your happiness, then there's a problem with this, right?
Yep.
Most of the things in here.
Yeah, because later on, as we study the book, and I'll address this right now because as I listen to sermons on Ecclesiastes, as I study, some of the people who preach it preach the whole book in one sermon, and I get it because it's such a depressing book to drag out. It just is, like this morning. And what you're able to do when you preach it all one time is he does come back to some of these things and say that they're actually good, but he mixes it up with fearing God. And he talks about fearing God in the book of Ecclesiastes later on. So he comes back with these same things. That's why we read about the rich fool this morning. There was nothing wrong with the guy building barns. There was everything wrong with him being poor towards God. He had this rich fool had no clue that God was going to judge him for what he's doing, and that if he really wanted to be rich, he wanted to be rich. If real riches was riches towards God, that's what it really was about. They had no idea. So we call him the rich fool all the time. I think we should be calling him the poor fool. It's what we should be calling him, but it makes a little more sense. But Solomon, you'll see, as we study this book, is going to say good things about many of the things that he talks about there. But, and I didn't do it this morning, but if you took a pen, and you're going to need a lot of ink, because in the verses we read this morning, the I and the me and the my, he can't get past himself. He is his own source of happiness. And, here's the thing about it. As I was studying this, I was thinking about this. We can keep ourselves going with some of these things because we're often, say money or fame, for example, power, if you will. I didn't even talk about power, but those types of things, we can keep ourselves going because we're trying to catch up with someone else, right? Yeah, the Joneses have more than us. I'm going to catch up to them. And so we can keep ourselves going. We never even think, what if I really did beat all the Joneses in the world? Solomon did. What if I really am at the top of everything? Now what? And so we keep ourselves going with, well, catch up. Never thinking what's going to happen at the end of it all.
So we're caught up in some of this stuff without even realizing.
It's super easy to do. Get caught up in this stuff. I kind of get a kick out of it. A lot of my younger contemporaries, when I was younger than I am now, they were moving into bigger and bigger houses. Well, now I'm seeing them getting to be my age, and they're downsizing. And it's something now they're moving smaller houses, right? And you got to ask yourself at some point, so did that house serve you? Was it a status symbol? Were we like Solomon, building houses just to build houses? Or did that house serve you? And I guess they're moving to smaller houses now because they don't want to take care of the big house. I don't know what they're thinking about all the time. But I do have to wonder at times, what were you serving? Solomon's serving his own happiness here, and it's not working. And we owe Solomon a great debt here. We don't have to spend our lives chasing after all this stuff. Solomon can already tell us, I chased it, it didn't work out well. And that's one of the reasons why we're kind of going through this verse by verse, even though it's frankly depressing. That's why. We need to drag ourselves through his experience. And that's what we're going to be doing as we study this. Solomon's bad experience, we're going to experience it with him. It's supposed to feel depressing. Was for him. Yes?
Can you speak to Proverbs versus Ecclesiastes, the timing? Because in chapter 30 of Proverbs it says, give me neither poverty nor riches, feed me with the food that is needful for me, lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. So it seems like that was the conclusion, but was Proverbs written after Ecclesiastes or Ecclesiastes after Proverbs?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out. I do believe that Ecclesiastes was, of course, written late in life. Kings tells us that he wrote over 3,000 proverbs. Some of those proverbs are in Ecclesiastes, as you know. As you get towards the end of the book of Ecclesiastes, it sounds like the book of Proverbs. Have you ever had this problem? You thought there was, I've had this problem. I thought there was a verse, I was sure it was in Proverbs, I can't find it in Proverbs. Sure enough, it's in Ecclesiastes. That has happened. So I don't know which came first there, Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. I know King says what he wrote, but it doesn't tell me when.
But he included, he didn't want poverty or riches, so he wanted enough.
It certainly sounds like that was written after Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, it seems like.
Sure sounds like it anyway.
Yeah, just give me enough. Not too much, not too much.
It seems like that lesson, at least, whatever was written, the lesson was certainly learned after Ecclesiastes chapter 2. It sure seems that way. Yeah, who knows when he penned it, but when he learned it. Yeah.
On a technical level,
Yeah.
because we're going through Proverbs in Columbia.
Yes.
Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Shameless plug. It does seem like if you want to be technical about the actual writing of Proverbs, many of the Proverbs, which of course are Solomon's, some were penned by his own hand, but there were a number of them compiled by kings after he was already dead. So the book itself, personally, I would lean to saying, as compiled as a book, is probably done after Ecclesiastes. But I think it's fair to say that within that idea of the actual Proverbs he's penning, many of them run contemporary with the end of Ecclesiastes. And so I think, and we see some of them too being compiled by other people and put into a book form. So I think on a technicality, book form itself, probably after Ecclesiastes, but certainly these were written down because that's what it says the king's men, his wise men and scribes, took the writings of Solomon and compiled them together into what we call Proverbs. So on a technical level.
Yeah. And Hezekiah apparently was involved.
King Hezekiah.
King Hezekiah was involved
Yes.
in putting at least some of them together,
Yeah.
if not all of them, who of course came significantly after Solomon. Yeah. All right, good. Yes, and then,
I was just going to say the chapter 30 is preface. First verse says the words of Agur, son of, I don't know how to pronounce the next
Yeah.
one, but even the prophecy the man spake unto Ethiel. Seems like chapter 30 might be not.
might be someone else. Now, which one is Lemuel? Is that 30 or 31?
That's 31.
It's 31, okay.
They both put it still in Solomon.
Yeah, some people say that's still Solomon. I don't know enough to really address that. Especially Lemuel, people say they really believe Solomon. This guy here, not as sure about that one, or not as dogmatic, if you will. Yes.
Comment more than a question. Regardless of when the proverb was written in Proverbs 30 that we're talking about, I think it's after Ecclesiastes that Solomon would be able to define enough. There's a saying, is it about Rockefeller or Carnegie when he was asked how much is enough? He said, well, just a little bit more. But for Solomon, after Ecclesiastes, he could conclude how much was enough. And so that's a big part of that proverb.
Yeah.
Give me enough. How much is enough?
Yeah, and he addresses that there. Read a statistic recently that there is a amount of money that, and apparently people do studies on these things, that there is apparently a certain amount of money that people, if they have this certain amount, they're okay if they're able to pay their bills and so forth, right? If you work in the investment industry, you see studies like this from time to time, okay? And then what this study said that I read said this. He said many people make a whole lot more money than that level at which they find that they're okay, right? But they find, this is what they find. They find that the amount of money can go way up, right? What do you think happens to their happiness quotient, if I can say that, HQ? What do you think happens to their happiness quotient as their money goes up? What happens to the happiness quotient? Oftentimes it stays the same or decreases, right? We're going to see that in the book of Ecclesiastes, where Solomon says, later on he's going to say, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, but the riches of the rich will not allow them to sleep. We have this idea promoted to us all the time by the people selling us lottery tickets and television commercials that we're going to get all this money, we're going to be happy. Boy, if all of a sudden you came into millions of dollars, try sleeping at night. Try it. All of a sudden you're going to have responsibilities you never knew you had. And that's why this proverb here says, you give me enough. And I think that verse actually speaks to the study that I'm talking about. This is stuff we need to know now before we waste our lives chasing after nonsense. Who else has a question? I want to thank you for your kind attention here this morning. I'm going to ask Seth and John to step up. We're going to share in communion.